Happy Friday. You made it through the week. We are so happy you're with us here on Friday at 5 o'clock. So let's dive into this. What do you at home, what do Idahoans think about major policies and debates across our beautiful state? Well, that is the question that Boise State School of Public Policy aimed to answer in their 8th year of the Public Policy Survey. From November 10th to the 17th of this past fall, 1,000 adults that live in the state of Idaho were surveyed on a collection of focused questions aimed at giving an accurate picture statewide on views and beliefs on things like education, the economy, progress as a state, and the outlook into the future. Before we get to the results, though, I think the methodology of this survey is very, very important. So before we dive into any of this, here's an explainer on the survey from Dr. Matthew May. He's the Survey Research Director of the School of Public Service at Boise State.
It is a representative sample of the entire state, 1,000 Idaho adults, and our margin of error is plus minus 3%. That means we can be fairly confident that if you asked everybody in the state the exact same question, the overall answer would have been within 3 points plus or minus what our survey says.
Okay, so now you know what we're talking about here in terms of the survey, and we're going to link to the full report on our website. But here are just a few takeaways for you. And number one, the number one key finding, and I hate to tell you this, there is increased pessimism amongst Idahoans in terms of the direction of the state of Idaho. Dr. May explains.
I think the thing that was most surprising to us about the survey was the rising concern that we're seeing among Idahoans for what the future may look like. For the first time in our 8 years history of the survey, we've seen the question right direction versus wrong track fall within the margin of error in terms of the gap between those two positions. Meaning that is more or less statistically tied. We are seeing less optimism, more concern about what economic conditions in Idaho may look like in the future, and a sizable portion of Idahoans are saying that they are concerned about meeting their monthly expenses each month.
So if you're an Idahoan that feels that way, now you know you're not alone. Now, a lot of attention on the Idaho legislature on this program here on the 208. So let's talk about what Idahoans want to see out of lawmakers. Question was asked, rank the issues that you want Idaho lawmakers to tackle, and the list shakes out like this. 72% wanted to see education as the top priority for lawmakers. Good news, it seems like it is. Second, jobs in the economy. Third, housing. Fourth, healthcare, and fifth, taxes. There at the bottom you can see transportation, which I thought was an interesting note. But education is the top priority that Idahoans want lawmakers to talk about. So let's dig a little deeper here. The survey asked an open-ended question about what the top priority for public K-12 education should be. Here are the results. About 24% of respondents say that academics is the most important thing when you talk about K-12 public education. 17% said teacher support, and 13% said academic quality. In case you were wondering, concerns about classroom content, things like the conversation around critical race theory, that came in at about 10% with some other factors added in. I think it was actually 6% exactly concerns about critical race theory in the classroom. All right, how about another major conversation we've had here on the 208? Property taxes across the state of Idaho. Do you feel like there's an issue? Well, an increased amount of response from previous years indicates that almost 56% of Idahoans think that property taxes are too high. But believe it or not, 32% say that they're about right, and you can see about 2% think that property taxes are too low. Interesting response there. Now, property taxes can be correlated to growth in areas across Idaho. Survey question, what would you say the state of Idaho is growing too fast, too slow, or about right? 67% of respondents say that growth is too fast. Only about 23% say that they think it's about right. Another interesting finding in the survey, thoughts on getting rid of the sales tax on groceries. And this has been a legislative conversation for many, many years. We have yet to actually see something get to the governor's desk. But to be clear here on what we're talking about the grocery tax, removing it, it would only apply on food items like fruits and veggies, meat, bread, dairy, not anything you would find inside of a grocery store. So, do Idahoans want to get rid of the grocery tax? Here's your answer. 82% of those surveyed across Idaho favor the idea of eliminating the grocery tax. 60% strongly favor the policy idea, about 22% somewhat favor it. And this is across all political spectrums, by the way, but it seems like Idahoans on both sides of the aisle are right in the middle. They have a strong message on that policy discussion. We'll see if the legislature does anything with it this session. Now, these are just some of the findings for you, but a big question you may have: why are we talking about this? Why does Boise State even bother with this? Well, it's about informing lawmakers and the public about big conversations.
We do this survey every year because we think it's important that policymakers and decision makers and leaders throughout the state know what Idahoans think in general, and we try to just provide information on a range of policy issues that are likely to come before them each legislative session, so that they can fold it into their calculus or not, so that they can use it to aid their decision-making processes.
So there you go. We'll have the full survey in a link on our website if you want to dive into more. There's a lot of different things. It gets into the economy, education, all kinds of interesting insight. Great work over at the Public Policy at Boise State.